The new Luca Guadagnino movie Queer is now in theaters. This is his follow-up to Challengers, one of my 3, 5-ish favorite films of the year. Challengers was a masterpiece, perfection. And he chooses to follow it up with Queer, a quote-unquote love story starring Daniel Craig and Drew Starkey, an actor I'm not familiar with prior to this movie. Apparently, he was in Devil All the Time, but I don't remember him. I'm not familiar with his name. This movie takes place in Mexico City in the late 1950s, give or take, and it basically details the love story or you know the connection that Craig, a man that's like in his late 40s, I think he's trying to play. And Drew Starkey, who's just kind of a younger student in Mexico City at the time. And this movie has good chemistry between the two leads, I would say. It's very interesting to watch Craig's performance in this movie. He's playing like a degenerate, drunk loser who doesn't feel entirely self-assured, despite the fact that he is constantly kind of putting himself out there in weird situations and kind of has no shame until he feels rejected in certain scenarios throughout the movie. And when he comes across Starkey's character, his whole attitude definitely shifts, and you can feel the shift in the movie once him and Starkey's character starts to hit it off. And it's pretty good because a lot of the time, not a lot of the time, but for a decent chunk of the film, Craig is trying to figure out whether or not Starkey's character is also gay, and it certainly seems like that's the case. But there is a girl involved in Starkey's life, and Craig obviously feels intense jealousy over that, I would say, and some weird decisions are made throughout this film to basically show that, but in Daniel Craig's like decisions that he's making in bars, like he's just getting absolutely plastered and talking with people in very odd ways. Jason Schwartzman is in this movie as like kind of Craig's best friend, and he's like kind of hilarious in it. He's also playing like, I don't know how tall Jason Schwartzman is in real life, but he's basically, it seems like he's playing like 5'4", 220-pound man that is just very funny, and he brings a well-needed sense of humor and relief to the movie because Craig is very serious throughout this thing, and Starkey is pretty reserved for a decent chunk of it. So Schwartzman kind of opens up the movie a little bit more than what was intended, but I was just surprised throughout this movie how serious things were, even in moments that I couldn't tell if this was supposed to be, you know, the characters are taking this very seriously, but this is comedic to us. I couldn't necessarily tell if that was the message that was trying to get across in some parts of it. That basically is the first 2/3 of the movie, and then the last third completely just drives off a cliff. Basically, Craig and Starkey's characters, they leave, they go to South America to find a drug that has the power of telepathy if you get high off of it, and it comes so far out of left field. I maybe I'm an idiot, and I am an idiot, but I don't know why that is in the movie and why it is like the central plot point for the last 45 minutes, give or take. At first, I thought he wanted to take the drug to get telepathy, the power of telepathy, in order to be able to read people better to see if they were also gay or not, pretty much. And I thought that was a pretty bonzo decision. But then as the movie went on, I kind of just lost that and couldn't even tell what the heck was the whole point of it. It became completely incomprehensible and just not really something that I could follow. Like, it was incompetent, I would say, the last third of the movie. Really bad. Something I would not expect out of Guadagnino at all. I'm not sure what he was going with here. Yeah, it's a real bummer because I thought the first two thirds were really good, and the chemistry between Craig and Starkey is there, I'd say. Their intimate moments are very moving and powerful, and as you learn a little bit more about them, you definitely start to develop emotions for these characters. Basically, you start to feel for them and learn how they're feeling and why they're making decisions the way they're making the decisions. Like Starkey is clearly a little more reserved and maybe a little more closeted, and Craig is kind of grappling with his sexuality, but at the same time is very confident. It's a very odd mixture that I don't necessarily know if it works for this movie. The strong point of the movie is Jason Schwartzman. Like, I don't know how else to say it. The banter between Craig and Schwartzman is really good because it feels more authentic than a lot of the other things that are going on in the movie, particularly the third act, where it feels so contrived that they end up in this weird South American kind of temple village thing with a weird lady, and from there they take the drug, and there's very weird scenes of them being high with very odd visuals that, you know, I understand you're going for this kind of Zen type thing where they've been elevated to like a higher level or a higher power, more or less, and it just doesn't really work. It's not clear to me what it means, and maybe it doesn't mean anything, and that's the point, but I don't like that interpretation. So I think it has to mean something and I'm just missing it, or it really is just like incomprehensible on purpose because that's life sometimes. Like, I don't know. It's very, I'm struggling with it because I'm struggling with it in a bad way because I don't see the end goal of the third act at all. And that's a bummer because I thought the first two thirds, like they were cooking with something, and it just, as soon as we leave the Mexico City where they are, as soon as they start the road trip, it's over. There is like one or two interesting scenes while they're traveling that I like, where we basically find out that Craig is also a heroin addict and is going through withdrawal symptoms. And I think that some of that stuff is compelling to a degree, but it goes just like that, and then it's done, and then, you know, they're in the jungle in South America, basically. And once you're there, I'm like, oh man, it's tough to hang with, I must say. It's tough to hang with. And that's unfortunate because Luca's a director I like, Craig is an actor I really love, and I don't know where this came from. It's a bummer that this movie kind of ended this way because I thought they had a chance to make something pretty special here, but alas, it was not for me. The last third is kind of a bummer. This ends up being like a 3 out of 5 movie for me, which is fine because, I mean, the first two thirds I think are good enough on their own. But that third, the last act really prevented it from being something special, I think. But I do recommend going to see this movie, ultimately, because I recommend you go see any movie, more or less, outside of Red One. Don't go see Red One. Go see Queer instead. I don't know. It's a better movie. That's for sure. But yeah, that's Queer. Kind of a bummer. If you want to watch a Luca Guadagnino movie, watch Challengers. And if you've seen Challengers before, watch it again, because it's one of the 3 best movies I've seen this year, for sure. But thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next review. Goodbye.